Welcome back, everyone. Kevin Carpenter, CPP Events, here to talk with Nicolai. Oh, man, it's early for me. Nicolai Josuttis, we're talking about your class you're giving at ACCU this year. I'd say good morning, but it's good afternoon for you. How you doing today?
I'm fine. It's Friday. It's right before the weekend, and I just gave a training, and I'm happy.
Right on. That's good to hear. So, if you don't know Nico, highly respected C++ expert, author of several best-selling books, longstanding member of the C++ committee. I mean, I can't imagine how many papers. It's been over 20 years you've been in the committee, isn't it?
Well, actually, more than 25. Yeah.
So there you
So
go.
I was in the room when C++ 98 was adopted. So that was in 1998.
Oh man, I got married that year, so yes, it's been a few. That's a little while ago.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
so you're giving your class using C++ 23 in practice. It's a pre-conference class on site. So March 29th, I want to say on the Monday. You've been teaching this class for a while, right?
Well, no, this one not. That's brand new. That will be the first time I will give a class about C++ 23.
Oh, wow. So I think the reason I confuse it is because it is one of the, I feel like it's one of those common things with all your experience with the committee that you're constantly having a class where you're working through whatever the new details are, how we can use them, how to apply them practically. I mean, that is the gist of what you do on this particular training, right?
Yeah, but there's one thing before I do that. I wait until compiler support it good enough. So I really don't want to teach just theory.
Hmm.
I wanna teach experience, well, small experience, early experience, but I
Right.
want to feel how this is used. So I'm one of the early adopters of a new standard usually,
Hmm.
and now it's time because now at least one compiler for most of the features, at least one compiler supports a feature in some way. So we can start now.
So do you mind me asking which compiler that is? Just because I
No,
haven't
no,
gone
it's
through.
for different features, different compilers.
Ah, okay.
So for some features, I have to use GCC, for some Clang, for some Visual C++, and usually then it's a mixture of everything. And the trainings, when we go to practice,
Hmm.
we might switch between compilers and even experimental versions of them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. No, because I mean, as we were talking before we started, it's like I've heard of like modules and flat map and some of these things that are, coming in to 23, but um, I, I'm still on 20, and I guess I should feel fortunate that we get to write C++ 20.
Well, modules is from C++20.
Has it improved with 23?
Yeah, a little bit. We have one standard library module now. So just with import std semicolon, you can get rid of all the hash include stuff. Um,
Ah,
that's already a nice thing, provided it works.
yeah,
So I just look at the compiler. So usually they don't ship with that. So you
right.
first have to do it once to create the std module, and one way or the other, and then it seems to work.
I was I was gonna say I remember a couple years ago, Bill Hoffman, with CMake talking about the things that they were adjusting so that CMake would be able to handle modules, and it was quite a this conundrum of like pre-compiling to figure out what you were going to need, and it sounded like it was not a small feat. I guess is more the point.
Let's see.
So, what are some of the new language features in 23? Do you have some favorites?
Well, probably the most amazing, surprising, and compelling thing is we have a function called print. and, and print line, so print room, like in Pascal or so. So
Yeah.
we are going back to basics,
Yep.
and that is probably the most funny thing we have. Everything else is to some extent special. I would say that's That's just the immediate benefit you have. So we start to write IO differently now. Well, output at least. So
I gotcha. So what about I was looking stack trace.
hmm
Is there so can you tell me about that one? Because I just saw it as being in the list. I haven't gone through and looked at it. Is it really adding compared to what we do? You know,
Well, let me first say, whatever you ask me now, I might say I have no clue because I'm still preparing the class. So, but
that is fair.
yeah, stack trace is a thing. Well, so far we don't have any support to have a stack trace when something goes wrong.
Hmm.
and and with stack trace, with the stack trace feature, you can give yourself the stack trace and then hand it around, for example, in exceptions, etc. So other languages use stack traces right inside an exception. This is not
Right.
the case in C++. So we now have an ability to, for whatever reason, see where exactly we are right now. It's a highly platform dependent feature,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
it's
that makes
it's
sense.
definitely better than nothing, I would say.
Yeah. So, being that you're on the standards committee, do you have any insights about what it took to get to C++23 and
Well,
where
when I
things will go?
yeah, well, usually, the way we work is every 3 years we have a new C++ standard, and whatever's
Right.
ready is ready. So it's in the nature of the things that sometimes this ready thing is big, and sometimes it's small. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
a lot of things come together, and sometimes not. So this will definitely not be a major release. This will, to some extent, extend and expand things we have introduced in C++20, which introduced a lot of big things, a lot of new
Right.
ways of programming, and then come up with a couple of small things that are all somehow helpful, I would say, both for generic programming and in the library, and yeah, also some good features. So I would not say this is there's a highlight coming and everything
Mhm.
changes the way you program in C++23. That's not the case, I think, in 23, unless I overlooked something.
But taking your class, any of the features that you do have covered in 23 will definitely give someone that forward-looking knowledge so that they can work to start applying it when they have the
It,
feature in
it,
the
it,
compiler.
it's something for everybody, and it's very different.
Yeah.
So we have a standard coroutine now, which generates values, or is to deal with generated values. We have a multidimensional index operator,
Hmm.
which is helpful for for people in the mathematics and numeric area. Um, we have, of course, new views, which are
Yep.
that's the technology of ranges and views was introduced in C++20. We have a multi-dimensional span, so a multi-dimensional
Yep.
array support now, with where we have a type that supports multi-dimensional arrays in a better way, and and then a couple of things as usual for generic programming, and
Yeah.
yeah. So it's really tricky. It's not something like in, I don't know, in C++26 we might have reflection, and then oh, we have
Right.
reflection, great. And but it's 23 is a couple of medium and smaller things. Yeah.
Well, so even there, like std generate, right? That's the coroutine portion you were just
Yes.
mentioning.
Generator. Yeah.
Yeah, std generator. No, because even Phil was mentioning that to me the other day when we were talking about his coroutine class that he's giving, and just the fact that some of these items are out there now that are going to make it a lot easier versus, easier from his point of view with using coroutines and such. So
Coroutines were designed, or were introduced in C++20 with the idea that we only have the basics, the
Hmm.
low-level basics, so that this can be implemented on a high-level application programmer-friendly way.
Right.
So it was always a plan to come up with high-level features that help you then to really use it as an application programmer. And SCD generator is the first one and the most obvious one. And if you just look at that code, it's several hundred lines of code. Nobody wants to write them themselves. So
Yeah.
that means yes, it's a big improvement. I would say this is the first thing where we can say let's use coroutines in practice as an application programmer in a pretty easy way. And so yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. So maybe with that we can say coroutines are now ready, at least a little
Hmm.
bit ready for use in practice and commercial programs. And instead of having at least the need to provide an additional small framework that comes up with things like generator and other things. Yeah.
It's interesting to me how, it makes me think of, if we go back to C++11, how, when we got threads and mutexes and you had kind of these intrinsics, and now you come forward, another 10 plus years, and there are so many other tools for handling concurrency in C++ that, you know, it's not that I don't have to think about a mutex, but it's seldom that I have to use one when I can use more modern tools that are in the language, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
And what is the question?
So no, I was just in general. No, it's not as much a question. I was just thinking about it from like stud generator with coroutines. How you're saying that, yeah, we started off with a set of intrinsics that made it possible, but then as we go along in the language,
Yeah.
the committee gets together. You're able to standardize and add some of these other features that then make it more consumable. Because from,
Yeah.
I've always said, like, I write applications, I don't do libraries as much. I mean, yes, we write library code for the applications we have, but it to me it made it easier for me to be able to consume and add features because they just reached a different level. Like you said, I don't want to write those 200 core lines to get a coroutine to work.
Well, I agree. Yes, it was a long path. It was a long way, and we are still not at the end.
Yeah.
Um, Let me say something about generator here.
Yeah.
Generator has a flaw, at least from an application program point of view, that also some views like filter view have, which is iterating over elements is a write operation, a writing operation.
Okay.
So calling begin, for example, is not a const function. So which means that on some way using a generator is pretty easy, but
Hmm.
suddenly you pass it as a range because the interface of a generator is you iterate over values, and what you
Right.
get is the generated values,
Right.
and and but usually you're used in containers that you can iterate and it's just read access to go to the next element, element by
Yeah.
element. And so, for example, a print function that just prints the elements could
Hmm.
use the container or the collection as const reference.
Right.
And that will not work with the generator because begin is a non-const operation. We have that problem already for some views like filter view, and here we have it again. And so I'm it's new, but it also breaks some things. It
Right.
breaks things like in the past, iterating over elements was always possible when the container is const or when the
Yep.
collection is const. So it also means more than just using it in an application program, and that's a trickiness. We come up with new ideas, new concepts, and they for some reasons break existing principles,
Yes.
and you have to learn them. So it's great to have that, and it's very easy to use it, but you might fall into surprises, and that's probably one reason to look to come to a training to a class like this to say let's not learn it the hard way, meaning falling in all the traps and pitfalls we have. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I was just, as you were saying that, I'm like, and this is why you need to come take Nico's class, so you can find these edge cases and not have
Yeah,
to learn it the
sure.
hard
Kevin,
way.
we made the advertisement.
And also, if anyone watching, if you keep watching to the end here, we have a coupon for 10% off for taking Nico's class. So you want to use that. You want to go sign up to take his class. But I'm also interested. Just I have to add, you're giving a talk in a few more minutes that we have left here. You're giving a talk about how old you are in seconds at
Yes,
ACCU.
yes.
Okay,
Do you
so
know?
I do not know how old I am in seconds, but hey, I can't do the. My wife says I'm good at quick math, but not that quick.
Well,
But do I count the 29th?
say it again.
Do I count February 29th?
That's the point. Well, it's not a point about leap days.
Yeah.
It's a point about leap seconds.
Oh,
Yes. And so this is a talk that talks about some not so well known things about the Stud Chrono library,
hmm,
and especially as it was introduced in C++20. And one thing is, how do you deal with leap seconds? Because we had leap seconds. The last leap
yeah,
seconds, I think, were in 1972, and I fear you were born there already. And so we have leap at leap seconds there. Oh no, I don't think it's true that this was the last one. That was a year where we had two leap seconds in a year. And oh, sorry, here's a phone ringing. Sorry. So yeah, so this is kind of a fun talk in a way that we have to deal with reality in a
yeah.
language like C++, and the reality is complex, the language is complex, and now we have to bring things together and see how this is handled. So there are a couple of interesting things, like some things you might not know about time zones and
Yep.
time zone offsets and things like that. So this is just it's a mixture of fun and how an API in C++, the standardized API, deals with it, because we can deal with that. We can really compute how many seconds you are alive, including leap seconds. We can do that. You just have to use the right clock.
Okay. Well, I will be interested to come see the talk, if nothing else, just to get those same kind of intricacies of, edge cases to miss. And so we've only got a couple weeks or so left before ACCU. A little more than two, I think. And so
I
I
think,
look
yeah.
I look forward to seeing you there.
I look forward to seeing you there, and I look forward to seeing everybody who watches this video.
Yeah,
And hope we meet. Yeah, it's on site. On site is a
on
new,
site.
brand great conference thing.
That it is. I appreciate your time this afternoon, Nico, and
Yeah,
I'll talk to you more soon. Thank you.
thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye.